when you can learn to put your attention on what you want and continually think about how I will get that, how I will get there, that will change everything.
Welcome to the Property Mindset Podcast, where I'm Emma Howitt, mentor, investor, and your guide to building wealth, freedom, and personal transformation through property. Property isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about building a life that you truly desire through choices you make, the risks you take, and obviously the mindset that you bring to every deal. In this space, we don't just talk about strategy, but we deep dive into mindset. And it really is quite often the missing link that is holding many investors back from actually being successful. So today's guest is here to talk exactly about that. Hi, Paul Becks. How are you?
You're very well, thank you. Thank you, Emma.
Fantastic. So today, Paul is founder of Engage with Success. He's a mindset coach who works really closely with property investors and entrepreneurs. He has real life experience in property as well as years of coaching. So he literally understands it all. So let's turn dreams into actions and actions into reality. So Paul, I'm just going to open up with
Yeah.
the first question. What is the one mindset shift for you that has made the biggest difference to your career?
I do like the word mindset because ultimately it always comes down to your thinking. So when you can learn to put your attention on what you want and continually think about how I will get that, how I will get there, that will change everything. And I learned that at I say a very young age. I was 20. That's when I got my first personal development book. And that was really, I learned about the subconscious mind. Once you understand that and that your thinking is so, so, so important, then you can change everything. Because most people don't pay any attention to their thinking. Well, that's not the right way to say it. They might pay attention to it, and so they're listening to their thinking, but they could be very negative, and so they stand themselves down. They think, "Oh, I couldn't do that." Oh, I, why do I think I could do that? They're much better than me. The usual stuff, limiting beliefs. So the minute you can start to pay attention to your thinking, then you can take control of it and charge of it, and then you can become much more self-empowered.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. And I know we're going to deep dive much more into that
Yeah,
because I've been working with Paul for about a year now, and he sees things, and I've worked with lots of mindset coaches,
some
read
very famous
books,
ones, eh?
been on,
Very famous.
amazing, Tony Robbins, all of these kind of things, Bob Proctor. But I do really enjoy the way that you can hone down to an individual. So a lot of those things are generically for all of us, but what you see in individuals, I think, is incredibly, powerful. But for anyone who kind of doesn't know you, could you kind of give a bit of a brief synopsis of your career? I know you're in property as well. You help entrepreneurs, so give us a bit of a background as to where you've come from to where you are today.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, really. So I'm just a working class kid. I grew up in Dover, in Kent, and the interesting thing really was the fact that my dad used to tell me I was useless and I'd never be anything. And so, really, that was I didn't know it at the time, but that was the catalyst for me to change my life dramatically. Because being told that, my dad was ex-military guy, quite an angry guy, had been to jail for GBH, so I used to take it out on my sister and I. And I guess he's just putting us down, putting us down, putting us down. And somewhere inside here, I was like, he's wrong. He's wrong. So this is the first thing to bear in mind. You've got choice. I could have listened to him and believed him, and I'd be a very different person today. Or you can say, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this one. I'll keep it clean,
Yeah.
but I'm not listening to you,
Yeah.
basically. And
Yeah.
so that was a huge, huge thing for me. So I wanted to prove myself to be something. So actually, being told I was useless and rubbish was a big catalyst for me to change my life. So if you feel like, well, I've had this bad background, then you can use that, you can leverage that, and you can make that work for you rather than against you. And I guess this is why it all comes back to that same thing about thinking. If I thought he was right, my life would be very different. But I thought I'm going to prove him wrong. Now, where that comes from, I'm not sure. I don't know if I saw something inspirational or aspirational in a film or a TV show, but something in here said I can do more and be more. And those, funnily enough, today, they're the people that I love working with. Somebody that wants more out of themselves and more out of life. They are my ideal candidates. Nevertheless, to continue my story, sorry, you can see I can talk for England if you're not careful, and
I
the rest of
love
the
it.
UK.
I know, Paul. It's great. Keep going. It's always good nuggets in there.
So hopefully, if there is anyone that's got a working, it doesn't have to be a traumatic background, but if you've got a working class background, that is not an excuse. If you've got a traumatic background, that is not an excuse. So just start thinking, right, I know what I'm after, I'm going to go for it. So I left home at quite an early age. I was in London, and then actually my sister went, she'd been away at dance school, and she went to work on cruise ships. So she got me a cheap cruise or a free cruise, I can't remember. And I went onto the cruise ship and thought, oh my goodness, this is something that I could do. And everyone's like, how are you going to do it? What are you going to do? And I thought, I don't know. I'll get on. There's got to be something I can do. And funnily enough, at the time, robotics was in, Michael Jackson and robotics. And I've been doing that, busking on the streets, making about 60 quid an hour. And this is in the 1980s.
Wow.
So for a kid, yeah, out on the streets at weekends making money, I used to go to Covent Garden. So I was doing pretty good money. And I thought I'll get on there. So I started auditioning. There's a magazine called The Stage, not magazine, like a newspaper for actors, and it listed work, and cruise ships were in there. So I went to 3, 4 auditions, and then one of the cruise lines got interested. It was Costa Cruises. They're quite well known these days. They weren't then, at least not in the UK. And they liked the idea because the robotics was like mime. Robotic mime is the way they saw it. And so it didn't matter what language of passengers was on board,
Mm.
they could relate to it or enjoy it and be entertained by it. So they took us on, and went with my best friend as well. And once we got onto the ship, we started looking at how we could make more money. And so we ended up DJing, because the DJ would basically put tapes on and disappear with a passenger. And so we got to start DJing, and that opened up the cruise director to tell us more about how we could make money on board the ship. And then during all of this, because at that point I'm just a hustler, but then somebody handed me a book, a gentleman called Fernando. He gave me a book, and it was called The Power of Positive Thinking. And it's from the 1960s, an old book, a lot of biblical references in it. So I found it interesting, and let's say it was a little spark in my head, like, this is interesting. So if you can think positively, you can change your life. But there was lots of biblical references, and I was never a very biblical person. So that, yeah, it sparked me, but it didn't set me on fire. And then the next book was called The Power of the Subconscious Mind by a gentleman called Joseph Murphy. And that set me on fire, because that really made it clear to me, a little bit like positive thinking, but the subconscious mind is clearly this force that is invisible. And so it turned me on to the idea that there are these invisible forces that are controlling me. And if I could learn to control them rather than have them control me, I could take charge of my life. And so I really wanted to test it. I think this has been very fortunate for me. I've never been one just to read something and believe it. I want to test it, test it, test it. So I thought, if this stuff's real, let's test it. And then my next book, the third one's important too, because I'd got fired up. I then got handed a book called Psycho, which sounds a bit odd, right? Psycho, like, got to be crazy, but it's nothing like that. It's psychological, psycho-cybernetics, also from the 1960s, much later version though. And basically that was also working on the same sort of area, all these invisible forces. And in fact, the gentleman that wrote that,
Maxwell
he,
Maltz.
yeah, Maxwell was a plastic surgeon, and he'd been helping people with injuries and burns and scars, and removing those. And even though he was able to make them look perfect and they became what they wanted, they still didn't believe they were. So that's really what it's about. So even though you've had the change you're looking for, you still have the same issues, the same problems. And again, it's all in here, self-identity.
Mm.
So now even just those first 3 books, The Power of Positive Thinking, okay, thoughts are important. The Power of the Subconscious Mind, and those are thoughts that are buried. That's your operating system running underneath all of that. And then this 3rd book is really about self-identity, who you believe you are. So to a certain degree, I'd been given these golden nuggets in the perfect order. I look back at it and see that. Some people would say it was just lucky, but I felt now, I didn't at the time, just reading books and learning from them. But then I went and tested. So I decided I want to become the cruise director who was making a shed load of money, and I wanted to become him. And bear in mind, at that time, I was only about 20 years old. And then I was telling everyone I'm going to become the assistant cruise director, then I'm going to become the cruise director. These days, I know to keep my mouth shut and just get on with it. Don't tell everyone because they'll all talk you down. And so they were all telling me, you've got to be 26 to be an assistant cruise director. Who do you think you are? You got no chance. Calm down, calm down, calm down. But I wouldn't listen. I was fired up. And so I worked hard, really, really hard. And a few things happened that fell in place, that fell in my lap. And so I became the assistant cruise director within a matter of months. And then the cruise director told me that he wanted to quit. He'd made so much money. He's about 35. He wanted to retire. He'd bought yogurt factories, properties around Florida, race
Wow.
horses. So he's in a really good position. And he's like, I want to get off, but I'll never be able to quit if I haven't got a replacement. So I'll teach you everything I know and you can replace me. I'm like, ka-ching, let's do it. And so basically, he taught me for the next 18 months. I learned everything I could. And then he pretended to be ill, got off the ship, and they're like, "What do we do?" And he said, "Put Paul in charge. He's the assistant cruise director. He's ready." And they're like, "What? He's 22." They said, "Do it." So they did it. They kind of had their arm forced since I became cruise director at 22.
Amazing.
And the results were phenomenal. I say results because passengers fill out a comment form and they loved me. So that was it. The company's like, "Oh my goodness, this can work." So they sent me off to Alaska with a Scottish cruise director, and they said that I was a diamond in the rough. And this
Mm.
guy polished me and made me a better version. And so then I became the youngest cruise director in the world. And that was the beginning of my journey, changed my life dramatically. And then we started a water sports company. In the ship used to go to an island and just take everyone to a beach, and there was nothing to do. And so we got like the inflatable hoops that go on the back of a boat, banana boats. Had
Yeah.
a friend come along with helicopters, and we started charging for all these activities.
Wow.
And so time I was 26, I'd made an insane amount of money. Let's just put it that way. And of course, legally is an important word here. Was
Yeah.
all tax free. So
Wow.
yeah, so mindset changed so time I was 26, I was a very different person to who I'd been at 20. And
Mm.
those 6 years just helped me prove to myself without any doubt that if you change your thinking, you can change your life. So have I answered the question or that was just the beginning? Because then I fell
That
in
was
love.
kind of the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, I fell in love with a dancer, decided to get off the ships. I'd seen lots of my friends, there were friends that were shippies for life. And so they stayed on the ships even though they got married and had kids. And then you see them cheating on their wives while they're on the ships, thinking, that's not the life for me.
Yeah.
That's my dad. I don't want to be like that. My dad was a bad guy, a cheater and a gambler. I'm not going to be like that. So we got off the ships and started our life in the UK. And then I decided, oh, I'll move into TV. That'd be easy. And that was a bit naive. So I tried for almost a year and couldn't get a job, couldn't get a job, couldn't get a job. And people were like, everyone I was up against has got 18 years of TV experience and you've been gallivanting around the world. So you don't know anything about telly. How can we hire you? So I thought, what's the worst TV I can find? So I worked my way up the channels and I found shopping telly. And I thought, anyone can do this, right? Wrong. But at the time, I thought, I can do that. So I practiced in my bedroom for about 3 months. I watched the guys that I thought were really good. I learned everything there is about Egyptian cotton towels and these pots and pans with aluminium bottoms. And I got a presentation together and I recorded it and I added all the graphics in, sent it into the TV company. And they're like, great, come in for an audition. And then I got the gig. And then I had a very, very fortunate career on television. I did live TV like 5 days a week for almost 20 years.
Wow.
So that was very lucrative and fortunate. So In fact, I ended up becoming the head of channel. So I was very, very fortunate. I've been very fortunate. And again, people like to say it's lucky. I don't think it's luck. It's putting your attention on what you want and going after it.
Amazing. And then how did you become a coach? What made you make that shift
Very good
from
question. Yeah. So I guess I'm a big fan of following your passion, doing what you love. And after some years of doing shopping telly, I realized, hey, it's lucrative, but basically once you've got a sell, you do the same thing over and over and over again. It might be different products, but it's the same thing over and over and over again. So I guess I got bored. And then my real passion, well, actually, I remember now, it was because I wanted to help my kids shortcut all of these books I've got behind me. I've got the books from decades of doing this stuff. I only kept the ones that I love. And I thought, I want to help my kids get to where I am much, much faster. And so I started writing a program for the kids so I could explain to them how mindset is important and how self identity is so important. And you can literally be, do, and have anything you want. But you've got to learn to do that. And if they're just going to school, they're probably the school. Well, I have a big conspiracy theory around schools, but basically, school is just going to make them fodder for getting a job and being staff member and maybe working their way up a little bit. So I thought I've got to break them out of that cycle. So I started writing something to help them. And then when I talked about that at dinner with friends, they'd be like, "You got to share that with me." And then there's a little bit of a light bulb moment thinking, I should share this with other people. And so at the time, I thought the best way to do that would be coaching. Uh, I don't know why I could have just been a trainer or created a program, but for some idea, I got this idea in my head about being a coach. So I started taking coaching classes, did loads and loads and loads and loads of certificates on the wall now. But I learned to become a coach thinking I needed to. And it wasn't really true, but I'm sure there's useful tools in there. And then once I started coaching, which was 16 years ago, it's once you start helping clients, you realize what people need help with. And it became clearer and clearer and clearer to me that coaching, we're generally taught to listen and all the answers are inside the individual. And I get that because, yeah, what do I know about their life? What do I know about the way they're looking at the world because of the problems that they've had in their life? But you realize, or I realized, that just pulling questions, asking questions, pull information out wasn't really helping them. In fact, a lot of people always call that therapy. That's like therapy. So I realized if I could create tools to give them, then that would help them move forward much, much faster. And I think that's really what I've become very, very good at is being able to systemize things, give them a pathway to follow, tools to use, and so they're able to accelerate their success. So that was originally written for the kids, and then I started sharing it with other people, and it's just grown and grown and grown and grown. So
absolutely.
that's all I do now. I don't do TV at all. I just coach people. I love it. It's my joy. Absolute. I say it's a joy, not a job.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's incredible. And I love what you talk about being fortunate. And it was quite clear from your journey that it wasn't fortuitous that these things happened. You know, you tried for a year to get into TV. You then spent 3 months practicing. And then guess what? You know, the harder you work, the more successful you can be. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be hard work, but you specifically saw a plan and went and worked on it. And that's what you have clearly done all the way through your life. So this whole thing, oh, you know, I'm lucky, I'm unlucky. I know in our family, there's this thing, oh, we're unlucky. And I'm kind of like, I don't think that's true. I don't think there is a luck or an unlucky person. I think it's just the way that you perhaps perceive life or all of those things. Do you see that a lot as far as kind of people thinking? You know,
Oh,
do you?
oh, absolutely. And what you've just said, you've just nailed it. The opposite is probably the most famous saying. I think it was Ford that said it, the guy behind all the cars,
Mm,
that if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. And it's
mm,
exactly the same as saying I'm unlucky, where if that's what you're saying, you're
mm.
unlucky. And if you're saying I'm lucky, I'm lucky, I'm lucky, I'm lucky, then you're very likely to be lucky. But I really don't believe in luck because I know that there's much more of a mechanism to it. So luck would be like just rolling the dice and maybe you win. I'm a big fan. Roll the dice, roll the dice. Let's see what we get, and then we'll work from there.
Yeah.
But the fact is, you don't just keep rolling the dice and hope you get what you want. You've got to literally, and I know people are here about goal setting, and most people find that very pedestrian. Think, oh yeah, I know what goal setting is. I'm pretty confident 95% of the world doesn't know what goal setting is, and they do it in a very easy going way, a way that suits them, and they would like to have it, and it's wishy-washy, and
Mm.
it's a dream, and it's hopeful thinking. But goal setting is not like that. There is an entire system that I've got in place for people to really move towards their goals.
Incredible, incredible. So obviously, we're talking property mindset. You have a property business. You've got various things as well. So you work with property investors and entrepreneurs. What do you see as kind of the most common mindset block? Do you see, just a specific few that really affect people that can easily be helped, do you think?
Yeah. So I like to say first of all, because you've probably got a wide variety of people listening. So I know they're all focused on property, but there's three S's basically that their life will be evolving around. So there might be someone listening to you that wants to get their first property. So it's what I call a starter. They're starting in property, but then they might be on their second, third, fourth property, whether it's buy to let, rent to rent, whatever it might be, whatever vehicle they've chosen. They try to systemize it because you realize there's a lot of repetitious work in there, and AI is helping that dramatically these days. So they're the systemizer, and then you've got somebody that's got their head around it all. Now they're trying to scale so they can have a much bigger portfolio and make millions without having to do so much work. And what I'm about to share is true no matter which of those levels they're on. So first of all, I like to point out the triad of success. And there are three things that we need. So the one that most people focus on is skill set. And there is a need for skill set. There's no doubt about that. But that's the one most people focus on. And they just keep telling themselves, if I can learn this, 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 I'll be all right. And that's why you end up with people that become course junkies. And I'm not knocking education because that will help you scale and grow. But if you're waiting to learn before you start taking action, you're a course junkie and you're going to be stuck there for a long time. So
Mm.
skill set is important. Next one is tool set, and people are happy to invest all their money in this. And of course, today AI is the big word, and so people are buying apps and buying into all sorts of software that they need to get where they want to go. But if I was to draw a triangle, the third one is mindset. And I like to point out to my clients that the skill set is 10%, the tool set is 10%,
Wow.
and the mindset is 80% of your success. And that's because no matter how much money, and I promise you, I know people that have spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on learning about property and how to invest and how to create deals and how to do this, that, and the other, and to follow the people they enjoy following, but they still haven't either started or been able to scale. And the reason for that is because they're stuck in their head and they've got all of these excuses. Now, I'm not blaming them for that. I'm just waking them up to the fact that they've got to overcome their thinking and their feeling to get the results they want. So let me give you some examples. If somebody's starting in property, there'll be all sorts of, I won't be able to list all the excuses, but ultimately they might say, oh, I've got no money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can actually get into property with no money of your own. And there are training courses out there called No Money Down that will enable you to do that. And so you might need to open up your mind to that. And you'll argue, well, that skill set, great. So go learn that skill. But once you've learned that skill, and it'll just be a course, then implement it. And this is where the problem begins, implementation. So people love learning because it's safe, but taking action. And that action might be as simple as going out and looking for deals, going out and talking to estate agents. And suddenly they don't feel like they can do that bit. It's too scary. And they'll come up with stories. Well, who do I think I am? I've never had a property in my life. I haven't even got one, let alone buying one with no money of my own. And so on and on and on and on it goes. That's level one. But if somebody is systemizing and they're trying to get their second or third property, they might feel lucky. If they're feeling lucky that they've already got one, then they might be telling themselves, who do I think I am to have a second and third? I can do because the guy that taught me, well, he's different. And they start putting excuses in there. Well, he's got this or she's got that. And so they start layering it up. And it's just bull. It's stories they're making up in their head. But if they believe it, they're stuck.
Mm.
Yeah. And then it's exactly the same with scaling. It might be a much higher level resistance they've got, but there's some sort of resistance there. And here's the tricky thing. This is why subconscious mind is so powerful. Some of those excuses that they've got, they won't even be able to connect the dots and realize that it's from early childhood or teenage years, or
Mm.
something happened to them, like they lost all their money. And I promise you, I haven't shared this part of my story, but I lost my money 3 times because I'm a working class kid. So I didn't know how to deal with all the money I had. So I was
Mm.
spend the first decade. And it was great, great cars, great life. I traveled a lot, but then I ended up with nothing because I didn't realize to invest in assets. So I've grown up. I'm constantly evolving. I'm still learning today. But you've got a lot of information that's buried in the subconscious that will really shade the way that you make decisions and the action that you take. And so, really, that is the big, big problem. Now, we've all got exactly the same problems. I say problem, there is a protective system. I like to call it the self-preservation system that holds most people back. And I like, again, bear in mind, I've kind of created this story for my kids so they can see it and understand it. So I teach people, first of all, that there's 8 levels of self-mastery, and they can work their way through those. I can share those with you later if you wish. And then when they make their way up the journey, dependent on the experiences they've had in life and what they believe and what they think and what they've learned and what they've read and who they've listened to, they could actually get on a ladder and find they get success very quickly, which is really what happened to me. My success was very, very fast. And I call those ladders. I got on these ladders because of the things I'd learned and read. But at the same time, you can come down very quickly, and I call those snakes. So to me, I taught my kids life is a game of snakes and ladders. And those snakes can come and bite you even when you're thriving, when you're at the top of what you do. A little trigger, something from your childhood, something from your past, something from a divorce or a bad deal can
Mm.
bite you in the ass and take you all the way back down again. And you're like, how did this happen? So it's quite interesting to hear all of that. And so it's those snakes that tend to be the problem. So now I guess snake sounds like they're very bad. They're not, they're just to protect us. And so there are 4, and we've all got them. So the first one is the subconscious mind. And
Mm.
I like to think of it as a hard drive that's recording everything. And so it's archived everything. And so ultimately, if it needs to, let's say I'm going to make a coffee. It'll say, have we done that before? Look through the archives. Say, yep, we now do that easy. I'm going to make some toast. Great. Look through the archives. We now do that easy. Now, if it's your, let's say, property and it's your first one, I'm going to go property. I'm going to go see an estate agent. Do we know how to do that? No. Ah! It gets terrified. And now what it'll do is hit a big red button and set off your nervous system. So now you actually, because you can't feel your subconscious mind inside you, but when it sets off the nervous system, you can. And there might be a tightening in the chest. It might be feeling sick. It could be headaches. It could be earaches. All sorts of excuses and reasons now why you can't be forward and go see the estate agent. That's if it's the first one. But some people should be able to get beyond that. And now they've maybe got their first property, second property. And so then if they say, right, we're going to go and get another property, the nervous system might look at it and go, oh, yeah, we know how to do that. That's great. But then something else might come into it, maybe a new way of financing or refinancing, and suddenly they haven't done that before. And so it looks through the archives, don't know how to do that, whack the red button, ah! And so this is the first snake, the subconscious mind, and the second one is the nervous system. And that's far more powerful than most people know. They feel it in their body, and they almost feel stuck. Like, I
Mm.
want to do it, but I can't. I want to do it. So in their head, they're thinking, yeah, I can do this. I want to do this. I'm going to do this. But then they can't. And that's the nervous system. So then the next 2, we move up to self-identity. And the interesting thing about that is the first word, self-identity. We are the ones that decide who we are. And I like to explain this has worked well for property people. It's like you've got a plot of land and you put a wooden fence around it. And so, as long as the stuff that's going on in your life is inside that fence, you're okay. Everything's good. But the minute you try scaling, expanding your business, growing, going into a new business, whatever it might be, something new, that means you're going up to the fence. So now you're on the very edge of your comfort zone. And if you want to scale and do something you've not done before, you've got to go over the fence. And of course, that's the problem. And so now you're getting outside of your self-identity. But you're the one that created the identity. It's just bull that you're telling yourself. and you believe it. So what that does, it's not another alarm system. It calls a security officer. I like to call it the security officer because this is the ego, and the ego comes swooping in, and that's the voice in your head. When that starts saying to you, and you get this conversation going on, well, I want to do it. Yeah, but who do you think you are? You've never done this before. What if it all goes wrong? What if we lose everything we've already got? That's the ego. And so
Mm.
all four of these things are designed to protect you. So they're not bad. I know sometimes people think the word snakes means that they're bad. It's bad if it's holding you back, but they're all there to help you survive. They're there to help you stay alive. But when you want to thrive, they're a resistance. They're a force to hold you back. But when you understand, yeah, they're just trying to keep me safe. So really what we want, I call that self-preservation system. What we need to do is switch over to self-leadership. And that leadership is making sure that these four mechanisms that keep us safe are under control. So another analogy I like to use is software. So if it was software, like this is the computer, and basically your subconscious mind would have an antivirus to protect it. The big one is the nervous system. I like to think of that as a firewall. And when that comes down, I mean, that can keep you stuck in bed. You can't even get out of bed because you feel so unwell. And then the next one will be self-identity. And that's like setting your own permissions on your computer. You know, are you an administrator or are you a guest? You decide, you set the parameters. And in this case, it's for safety and security. So if you set them too tight, firewall will come down earlier. If you can loosen those up, firewall will lift a little bit. And then finally, the last one, the ego, think of that as being something like anti-spam system. And so all of these are just to protect the computer. But if we don't change the settings, then they're going to keep us locked down.
If you're ready to take your property journey to the next level, check out my Property Success Mindset Formula. It's a course on Udemy, and inside you'll discover actionable strategies and exercises designed to shift your thinking, boost your confidence, and help you navigate property challenges with clarity. Whether you're just starting out or looking to break through to a new level, this course delivers the mindset tools professional investors use every day. Visit the link in the show notes to unlock your property potential. Your biggest asset is not just your portfolio, but the way you think. I mean, absolutely, that makes sense. And there is obviously so much going on. And I think it was really interesting for me to kind of work through with you and try and get to the bottom of things. But I just wanted to kind of take a step back, because certainly when I've worked with people, one of the things that I found really amazing was for years and years and years, I did feel that, the world was out to get me, and, perhaps I was unlucky, and, a little bit of feeling sorry for myself, in fairness, quite a big bit, I should think. Um, and then I started to understand about this, talking about people talking about a mirror. And it
Oh, yeah.
was kind of like, if what is happening to you is not what you want, you can change that. You have control. And I think that is quite scary. And certainly for me, having been able to blame everyone else for so many years, to suddenly be like, well, actually, it's you that has that control. That can be quite a lot. Can you sort of talk to us about this kind of mirror and the fact that we really do have control? Because I think most people feel that the world happens to them rather than, they could change
Yeah,
what
they're
is
creating
going
their own
on.
reality is
Yeah.
what you're talking about. Yeah. So again, I systemize this. It's instead of being another triangle, this is a mountain. But ultimately, so I teach people 6-step program. It's called Engage, and
Mm,
I'll go through the 6 letters. So, I don't try to hide anything ever. The E is for evolve. And the first reason for that is because you must evolve your mindset. If you don't change your thinking, which is, you said pick a one thing earlier,
yeah.
thinking. If you don't
Mm.
change your thinking, you're going to get more of what you got. So you got to change something so you start getting new results. So evolve is first one. That's what I'm going to come back to that in a moment. Then the next one is an N. The N is for nirvana. And I like the term nirvana. It's a Buddhist term. I'm not a Buddhist, but the Buddhist term means life without struggles. And if you got life with no struggles, well, life's great, right? It's be brilliant.
Mm.
So if there's no
Wow.
struggles, life will be great. So ultimately, in our terms, that will be like a compelling future. It will be your dream life, heaven on earth, another one that
Yeah.
I often hear. So I call that nirvana. Then we go on to G, which is for grace, and that's basically living in a state of grace. And state of grace is all about getting those four snakes under control, so that you're now living in a state of happiness and enjoy, um, just feeling comfortable no matter what's going on. So we can go back to that a little bit later, although I know we haven't got 3 days to talk about all this stuff. Then after that, the A is for action. So I'm not one of these woo-woo people. I think, just sit down and start meditating and you'll get the life you want. You have to take action, but you won't take action if you haven't got the first three in place. If you haven't evolved your mindset, what's the point in taking the action you've been doing over and over and over again? You'll get more of what you got. So
Yeah.
then you've got to get nirvana, so you know where you're trying to get to. That's going to help. And then being in a state of grace means you've got your nervous system under control. You're in a good place. And now we're going to take action. Then after that is grit, and grit's important. It's not, some people think grit is about digging in and fighting and working harder, and it isn't really. What happens is when a snake comes along, and it will, and I promise you, even though I've been doing this stuff for 40 years, I'm 60 now, even though I've been doing it for 40 years, snakes could still come and get me. I could still get triggered. I could see something or hear something and I can feel it in my body. So the snakes will never go away. They're always trying to protect you. And then finally, the last step is for education, which means we're continually learning. So even today, I have two mentors, and they're helping me get to an even higher spiritual level. So it's an evolution. It's just finding out more and more about yourself. So there's the 6 steps. People have got that. So let's go back to evolve. So the bottom level is I've created this as a mountain because I want people to see that it's a journey, and ultimately, the higher up you go, the less people there are. So that's why it's that shape.
Mm.
And also, the higher up you go, the clearer the view is. It becomes more panoramic. You can start to see it's really, I'm indicating transcendence. But when you're at the bottom, at the very bottom level of this mountain, is a forest, because when you're on this bottom level, you can't see the light for the trees. So it is an interesting, I guess it's a metaphor for this journey, the way that you're going to evolve. So at the bottom is self-repression, and repression is the worst place to be. That's a combination of depression, suppression. So sometimes people, they can't even see what they're doing to themselves, but they're thinking, and your brain is a chemical factory. Look this up if you think, what? Your brain is a chemical factory.
Mm.
And one of the things it does is produce chemicals. So if you go to the gym, you're likely to be knocking out dopamine, oxytocin, fall in love, serotonin, the happy endorphins people talk about. So that's being pumped into your body. You're in a good place. You're in a state of grace. But when you're thinking negatively and you're seeing the whole world against you, then you're doing the opposite. And that chemical generally is called cortisol. And if it's a dangerous position you're in, then it's adrenaline. And so these chemicals now make your nervous system react to whatever it believes you need, because ultimately the brain is just predicting what's going to happen. So repression is a really bad place to be. And I think we know depression, nasty thing,
Yeah.
and suppression can often happen. People don't realize they're being held back by their own thinking. And then something will come along one day and suddenly it all becomes revealed to them and they spill their guts about their childhood. I've seen it happen. I've seen clients go through that. So that's repression. The next one up, where most people are, is restriction. And this may well be your property people, certainly true for many entrepreneurs. So again, whether you're starting, systemizing, or scaling, you're in a restriction. It's like having one foot on the petrol, on the accelerator, and one foot on the brake. And so they tell me it doesn't matter how hard they work, they're going round and round and round and round. And that's because if they don't evolve, if they don't change their thinking, they're just going to keep going round and round and round and round. Make sense so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the way out? The first step is self-recognition. And so I train my clients to start recognizing their thinking and their feeling. And they've got to recognize that, because if they don't start paying attention to it and seeing it, they won't know what to change. So it's like realizing, I'm calling myself unlucky all the time. Or all day long say, I can't help it. It's just the way I am. Again, that's more bull. It's rubbish. You're just telling yourself that. And so you're just that way because you've agreed to be that way. It's not because you can't help it. So once you start recognizing your patterns, we then go to the next step, which is self-regulation. And so we start regulating our thinking. So if you are thinking, I'm always unlucky, I'm always unlucky, I'm always unlucky, if you start saying, I'm always lucky, I'm always lucky, I'm always lucky, your brain's probably going to go, that's bullshit. And because it's such a jump. And so you've got to move gently. I already talked about the fence around the piece of land.
Mm.
So what we're basically doing is pushing the fence out gently, because if we push it out and now we enclave another acre of land, the four snakes are going to kick us in the butt and go, who do we think we are? And we'll be in lockdown. It's not going to happen. But if we can do it gently, 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 self-regulation is about keeping the four snakes under control. Yeah, so the subconscious is happy. Excuse me. The nervous system doesn't kick in. It fits with self-identity because you're just stretching it a little bit. And so the ego doesn't kick off. And so now gently, gently, that's why evolve is another important word, because we have to do it gently. Just like phones have evolved from being the phone where you had to go and put 10 pence, or probably it's 2 pence when I was a kid, in the phone box, to luckily having a phone in the house with the cable on it, and the cable got longer, and then we had those big brick phones, and then it went to the mobile phone with the keypad, the BlackBerry, and then of course onto the phones that we all see today, which is pretty much all screen. And who knows, at some point, I guess what, now they've got it in your watch, they're probably going to put something in your head and you'll just be able to talk out loud and they can hear you. Who knows what the future will hold? But that's evolution. And we have to do it gently, 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 gently with ourselves. And that's why, unfortunately, some people would love to, change me in a day, change me in an hour, or change me in a week. It's not going to be like that. Not because I'm not good, but because you need to change gently. Otherwise, you will fight it, because you just won't believe that you can be that sort of person. So again, going from unlucky to lucky is too much. We have to come down and then we have to build our way up.
Yeah.
So that's
And I
what's
think
so,
if I just say something, I think
yeah,
from my own personal experience of that, um, I think it's easier, isn't it, when you hear people sort of saying it out loud, what they're thinking. Some people kind of say it out loud and it's kind of like, oh, I can see them. But I know for me, it wasn't something that I said out loud. And when I started listening to that, I was kind of like, cripes, that's pretty awful. And I always think, would I say that to my kids? And if I wouldn't say it to my kids, like, why would I say it to myself? But then you kind of have this level, and I kind of was at the stage where I was kind of like, oh yeah, well, I've changed that now, but I kind of conveniently, or I don't know what it was, ignored a whole other host of things that I was saying to myself. And then suddenly you think you've got that one sorted, and then it kind of almost for me was like layering. And suddenly I would hear some more stuff that I've obviously said to myself for years, but I hadn't quite realized the effects it was taking. And I found over time that I've literally kind of gone deeper and deeper and deeper into listening more and more and more into what is being said. And yeah, that has been a big thing to for me, because I think I got to the stage where I was kind of like, yeah, I've done that, tick, because I'm very logical. And then suddenly it was like, okay, but the mirror is still not happening. I'm not getting
yeah,
the things that I wanted. And so I've had to go back and go, oh, I got to do it all again. I keep doing it and keep doing it. And it's not just an overnight tick. It's a constant thing. As you said, you've been doing it for, even
40 years.
longer than me. And, you still know that something can crop up. So yeah,
Yeah.
I found that really interesting. This kind of constantly having to dig deeper.
Well, it's because we're all creatures of habit, and I'm getting back to your reflection in a moment. It's the next
Mm,
level. We're all creatures of habit, and the reason for that is basically the subconscious mind is trying to. There's so much information coming into our world,
yeah.
so much we can't pay attention to all of it. We go into overload. Yeah, it's like if you open up all the programs on your computer. I don't know what you use. It could be Word, Excel. You're on the internet. You've got Zoom open. I'm looking at some of my things. WhatsApp. ClickUp. You opened everything. At some point, it's going to be an overwhelm and get locked. Yeah, it can't
Mm.
deal with it. And we're the same. And so what we do is we restrict the amount of information. And so we just take in a little bit. And that's actually where our focus is. So if I'm working on this right now, that's where my attention is. I'm not paying attention to what's outside that window. I don't know what other noises could be going on around me because I'm focused on you. And so that means that there's lots of stuff going on that we miss.
Mm,
Yeah. And so, interestingly enough, self recognition and self regulation, those two steps are repeated at a deeper level.
okay.
And then they're repeated again at an even deeper level, but there's still recognition regulation. And clients don't realize when they first come to me, yeah, it's just like the steps we're taking. But recognition, regulation, those two alone will change your life. And of course, I give tools to help people know what it means to self recognize and tools to help know what it means to self regulate. But those two levels, entrepreneurs don't have to go any higher than that. If they can see that they were in repression, or they can see that they were in restriction, and then they can start to recognize and regulate, I can change their lives dramatically. As I say, I can. I'm just sharing the information. They've got to do the work. If they don't do the work, then nothing changes. And so my clients always say, they're saying, well, thank you so much, Paul. I'm saying, you've done the work. It's you. It's not me. You did it. So well done, you. And yeah, but without you, no, 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 no. You did the work. I just shared the information. So here's the next one up. So this is a deeper level of self recognition. And we call this one self reflection. And this is the one that you were talking about, Emma.
Yeah.
So self reflection is not about reflecting on your life, which is what the term's common for. I call that self analysis or self inquiry. Self reflection is getting people to understand and to see and to recognize that the world is a reflection of their thinking and feeling. And so that sounds a little bit odd to many people when they first hear it. But once they've been taught that and now they start observing it and they're watching and watching and watching, they can start to see, especially with self recognition and regulation already running, they can start to see that the results they're getting are a reflection of their thinking and feeling. And so now they become completely and utterly empowered. So if you start thinking the ways you used to, then the reflection is going to prove that. But if you start thinking in these new ways and using the tools, and you can really feel that you're starting to change the way you think and the way you feel and the way you're looking at the world, the results start to change. So that's really important. But that's only recognition of the world being a reflection of your thinking and feeling. So, how do we regulate that? Once the clients understand that the world is a reflection of their thinking and feeling, I then teach them self reverence. And reverence is it's a much deeper word than love. Um, Self-love would be great, you know, and I'd highly recommend that. But it's reverence is about just being in awe of life. It's waking up in the morning and being excited about the fact that you're breathing and you get to play another day because not everybody does. It's enjoying the pillow that's behind you. Maybe the sun is on your face and it feels great. Maybe it's raining because often people say, "Oh, the weather, it's a lovely day. I'm going to have a great day." It doesn't matter what the weather's like. It'd be overcast and it can be beautiful clouds. It's raining and you can hear the rain on the glass. So reverence is about just loving everything. I guess to a certain degree, it's a little bit like mindfulness. I trained in mindfulness, and when I gave classes and that, I used to get people just you can eat in a mindful way. So instead of just wolfing down the food, which I was a terror for doing, you can literally just take much smaller bits of food in your mouth and really pay attention to the texture and the flavor. And funnily enough, you'll find that you can eat less and you can enjoy the meal more. And if you're having a glass of wine, don't just wolf it down because we're creatures of habit. We go, "It's just wine, it's just wine." That's what it becomes. Stop everything, slow it all down, and enjoy that glass of wine. Take smaller sips, allow it to be in your mouth for a little while. And this is reverence. You start loving everything at a much deeper level. And then there are two more R's, and those are very, very spiritual. Nobody has to go there. It's all down to the client. If they're like, "I'm loving life and I want to go there," what do they go to next? It's self realization, coming to an understanding, realizing what the world is really all about. And then ultimately, the top one. That was my top one for a long time. And then I came to the realization that people understanding the way the world works and what's really going on, the fact we are a soul in a body having a human experience, it's not enough just to understand that. They want to experience it. And there's this transitional period to get into that. So that top R I call self-revelation. And when that happens, then you're in blissful liberation. You don't care what anyone else thinks. You're just enjoying life. You're loving everything and you are free. You can create the reality that you want.
I mean, you have some amazing uh, formulas for people to follow. And yeah, it really enables you to, I think, look at things in a totally different way. So we kind of looked at that kind of reflection and knowing that you have control. But how about, and I think certainly in property, you can have some, maybe there's snakes or whatever it is, but you can have some things that seemingly maybe crop out of nowhere and can put you in seemingly what feels like a horrific situation. You hear about, well, you don't hear about, but down valuations can have some massive effects. You suddenly find out that the roof is completely rotten or whatever. There can be some big things that can come into that. And at that stage, and as again, me personally have experienced that, it's really hard to be able to have this kind of mindset of feeling like, oh, it's all fine, when at that moment it really isn't fine. How can you kind of help people separate out that
Yeah.
kind of, I'm in the shit, basically?
So there's engage.
Yeah.
Okay, bring up engage again so you can see
Mm,
it. And the second G was for grit.
yeah.
And this is exactly when you need grit, because we'd all love, right, to say, "Oh, I've learned Paul's system. I know we're doing this, and this, and now life's easy." But
Yeah.
I promise you, no matter how good I get at this, events will still come along that want to knock you off your pedestal, right? So
Mm,
you can't help it. You could be just sat at the traffic lights. You're doing great. You're in your beautiful car. You're enjoying life, and someone drives in the back of you.
mm,
And that would piss you off. That would change your day. That would change what's going on. So the whole point here is that, yeah, what you've just said, and it's all property related, will come along. So grit is when that really comes in. It's actually the G in grit. It's another acronym, GRIT. But that grit, the first G is for grace, and it's to go back to getting in a state of grace. Why? Because state of grace is when you've got the four snakes under control. You're thinking in the right way, you're feeling in the right way. So now you're sending out this signal that everything's going the way you want it to go. So when it doesn't, we just fall apart. And now we go back to our old way of thinking. Oh, I knew that would happen. Well, if you just said, I knew that would happen, guess what? That's going to be in your reflection, right? So actually, you've just been bullshitting yourself that you've changed your thinking, but now the subconscious mind has gone through the archives and brought it back up, and here it is again. And so that's why it's so important to understand this whole ecosystem. So
mm,
now you just realize, okay. All I've got to do is replace the roof. Yeah, but where am I going to get the money? So this way, you've got to get back to a state of grace. Let's calm everything down, because if we're panicked, we're just going to be thinking negatively and that everything's going against me and it's all going wrong. Calm everything down. So self-leadership, put the self-preservation system back down. We know we've got an issue. Let's deal with it. How are we going to deal with it? We might need 10 grand to fix the roof. Great. How are we going to raise 10 grand? There are so many ways to raise it. But if you're in panic mode,
mm,
you're not going to be able to think how I could raise it. You might be able to get some finance out of another property, maybe even that property. Maybe you've got some gold you've got stashed up and it's been doing really well for you. You can take some money out of that. Maybe your cryptocurrency has done well. You can take some money out of that. Maybe you can ask a friend or a family member if they can lend you £10. Maybe if you've got a limited company with your properties in it, then you can go and raise some finance quite easily. In fact, you could go and get 20 easily. So there's 10 for the roof, and I've got this other 10 for whatever else I need. So that's why it's really, really important to get back to a state of grace, because that calms down all the nervous system and enables you to think clearly. But if you're not feeling clear, if you're feeling anxious and agitated, that's old. So another term I love to use is programming or presence. And programming basically is all the old stuff. Maybe you learned it as a kid, maybe you learned it from a teacher, maybe you learned it from an ex-partner. All the experiences you've had from life are programming. Now, they were probably pertinent, and all the rules and things you taught yourself were pertinent when you learned them. Yeah, so all the defense mechanisms I came up with my dad, they were pertinent as a kid and understandable as a kid, but it didn't mean that I had to keep doing them all through my life. So as a 20-year-old man, I was able to reduce them and drop some of the things that I used to do. Time I got to 30, I'd let more go. Now at 60, I wouldn't even recognize me to the kid that I was. And so you can see how we're creatures of habit. And if we hold on to things we've done in the past and copy them and do what we did last time, we're going to end up in the same place. So let's calm everything down and know that we'll find a way forward. And let's think calmly about it and do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's all very powerful, isn't it? And it's just going back over, as you said, seeing yourself and taking action from there. But what I really like to move on to now is inherently we've looked at ourselves, okay,
Yeah.
and we've seen that we are a mirror, okay, and
Yeah.
okay, I'm starting to understand that. I'm taking responsibility. And then the builder happens, or the neighbor, or my family, or this or that, and it's the other's fault. It's everyone else's fault.
Yeah.
And just as an example, I've got a the other leaseholder in my block. We share insurance, and he's being quite quirky, just to put it politely. And I had to, and every time he kept sending me messages, I was taking some deep breaths, and I was thinking of you, Paul, and thinking, it doesn't matter. It's, and just kind of, and actually my logical mind, kicked in, and I was like, okay, it's his word against mine at this moment. What can I do to support this? And I went back to the insurance company and said, what are we all responsible for? So, but where do we get to where suddenly we've
And what was
taken,
the result? When you went to the insurance company, were you able to fix it and get what you wanted?
we're still in the point, but I wanted to, he was saying, "Oh, you need to pay for my something that is gone wrong." And it's like, no, insurance companies pay for the result of what has gone wrong. They don't mend the leaking tap, you know. And so anyway, I've got it in writing now, and that'll be, I'm sure it'll be fine. But he is one of those people that he just rubs me up the wrong way
Right. So that
immediately.
this is great. This is great. So him rubbing you up the wrong way, what you want to do rather than blaming him, and I know you've got a lot of this under control, Emma,
Yeah,
but rather than blaming him and saying, yeah, he's doing this to me, you've got to look at why you're getting rubbed up the wrong way. He's
yeah,
actually a lesson for you.
yeah.
So when this guy's around me, I get rubbed up the wrong way. Why? What's going on inside of me? Because sorry, my Google's listening in and started talking. I don't know if you could hear it.
No, don't worry.
Yeah, ultimately, because it's all a mirror, there's
Yeah,
something going on inside us that's making us feel agitated. And it might be as simple as to remind you of a parent or remind you of a teacher or remind you of an ex-partner. Something inside us creates that. And that doesn't mean we're letting them off the hook. They might be belligerent, they might be horrible, they might
mm.
be a nasty person, but what we've got to do is control ourselves, and then we make a decision about how we're going to deal with them.
So
So it
is it
might be that I never
almost,
go
sorry,
ahead.
so it's
Yeah.
almost, isn't it, kind of like, because to me, he feels pretty unpleasant,
Yeah.
and
So why keep working with him?
no, he's just he's the leaseholder upstairs.
All right, right.
There is no kind of choice, so to speak. Yeah, I think you're right. It's thinking back at, it's another thing where I feel out of control, and that's something that I don't enjoy. And so I suppose, yeah, no, that is interesting actually. So it's enabled me to kind of look at it in a different way. He obviously is going to do what he does.
Yeah.
And it's just the way I now need to manage him. And I'm learning, because we've only worked together for a short time. I'm learning how to react, how to go with it. So yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
it
think
is,
a lot of it.
again, it comes back, doesn't it? To the fact that we might think that we control ourselves, and then other people come in and it's all their fault. But again, everything, we have that choice, we have that control in some way.
Yeah, we do, absolutely do. We have they can't see or hear your thinking or your feeling.
Mm,
That's completely and utterly your control. These are the invisible forces that's so important to learn about. Remember, I said subconscious when I learned about this invisible force that was controlling my life. And if I could control it and tell it, because it's meant to work for me, I just change the settings, I can change everything. And ultimately, these invisible forces, sometimes people think, oh, he's talking about invisible forces, it's blah, blah, blah. But it's not. Think gravity. Do you believe in gravity?
absolutely.
Is that an invisible force?
It is,
Yeah.
yes.
you believe in magnetism? You
Mm,
can't see magnetism. You can see the
yeah,
results of it. You put a magnet together and boom, they lock in, but you
yeah,
can't see how it does that.
no.
So that
Wi-Fi, we're talking now, aren't we?
yeah, all of these things,
Mm,
broadcasting, the television, radio
mm,
waves, microwaves, all of these things are invisible forces. And so it's subconscious thinking, feeling, they're invisible forces. Yeah. They often say emotion is energy in motion,
mm,
emotion rather than emotion. So it's all energy. Your thoughts are energy. And actually, you can't actually see them, but they can register it. They can put all those little plugs on your head and they can see the electrical impulses that creates. So you
mm,
know that thoughts are a real thing, but it turns out everything, everything is energy. It's really, really interesting.
yeah,
Now we are moving up higher and higher up the mountain, and we don't need to go up there to get results for your clients.
yeah, incredible.
So, where was I in the journey? What was I explaining to? Oh, about feeling about somebody that's maybe belligerent.
Mm,
So ultimately, yeah, they could be nasty and they could be horrible, but we don't have to. Most people, if somebody's rude to you, what do we naturally do? We're rude back.
mm,
We're almost mirroring them, aren't we?
mm,
Yeah. And if somebody gets aggressive with you, we get aggressive back because so the whole thing can escalate. But
mm,
really, you want to keep everything under control and be the best version of you. And if you do feel like you get triggered, well, that's great because now you can go and investigate it and find out why did I get triggered? What was it? And it could be something that you haven't realized for many, many, many years. Yeah. So shall I share this story? I'll share it. I'll give you an example. It's a really, really good example of how people can get triggered.
yeah,
So, my sister, she a difficult childhood as well. So she left home very early too. She ended up going to America so we're both kind of running away, right?
mm,
So she ended up in America. She got married, had her first baby. Everything was great. I went to see her. She's living in Seattle. It was great. She was really happy. But then her second child was a baby girl. And that baby girl helped her identify what had been suppressed for many, many, many years. And
mm,
suddenly, boom, like a volcano, everything just came out. And so with a baby boy, it wasn't a problem. But because it was a girl and she identified with the girl,
yeah,
she realized that she never, ever, ever wanted my dad to see her daughter. And so that really brought out something that had been hidden, what, probably 30 years, I don't know what age she was. She might have been 27, 28. But
yeah,
all those years it had been suppressed, and there was a sudden trigger. So sorry to make it so suddenly so deep and dark, but
yeah,
it just shows you how we can hide things, and if we don't need it, we don't need it, we don't need it, we hide it, and it's recorded, it's on that hard drive. And the minute a baby girl came along, then the hard drive looked through the archives and goes, "Oh my goodness, we know where this could lead." Boom, and it came out, and I promise you, it was a big mess for a while.
wow, yeah, incredible, incredible. So I'm just really aware of time, Paul. But I did just want to ask you one final question before we do a quick fire round.
Yeah,
Um, so you've spoken about, 10% skill set, you've spoken about 10% tool set and 80% mindset. So this could be, as we've discussed, a shock for some people. It's like, oh my gosh, I,
yeah.
I bought the course, I've been doing this, I'm
And there's nothing
doing,
wrong with that
of
as long as
course.
you implement, and if you
Yeah.
don't implement, then you know it's the mindset.
Yeah. So you're kind of doing, and as we said, things aren't quite going right. So what would you advise that person to do at that stage to start opening themselves up to be able to really give the time on that mindset level? Obviously listen to this podcast.
Yeah, that's a
but
good one for you.
but yeah, where would you sort of start that direction?
So if they've already come to terms with the fact that it's their thinking and they resonated with the idea that there's this four-part self-preservation system going on, then
Mm,
I would highly recommend a book called Awareness by a gentleman called Anthony DeMello.
yeah.
Anthony or Anthony, but it's got an H in it. DeMello, DeMello, no W on the end. And that I think will really give them the opportunity to realize that so much of their thinking is working against them. And again, that's not because life's unfair. It's because it's just trying to protect you. And we've got the opportunity to recognize that and go, yeah, get it. I'm doing this anyway. But most of us don't. We hear that voice in the head, and that's the worst one. That's the slipperiest of the snakes. The ego is very, very logical, which is a word you would certainly recognize.
Yeah.
And that logical, it's able to go into the archives. And that's why it can bring out stuff from many, many years ago, which can be fear mongering and really make you once it's coming from the subconscious, it can hit the alarm bells. And now you're not just thinking negatively, you're feeling negatively. So it could be like, I lost a shed load of money in stocks and shares. I'd invested in an airport heavily, and it just kept going up and up and up. So I just kept pumping more and more money in it. And then one day I called the guy. I said, I need to take some out, got to buy another property. And he's like, there is none. I'm like, what do you mean there is none? There's got to be some. I know stocks and shares go up and down, and maybe, it's gone down a bit. He said, no, they went bankrupt. It's all gone. I said, how can they bankrupt? They just said they're going to America. He said, yeah, I don't know what happened, but it's suddenly gone. And I realized this is only my conspiracy theory, and I'm sure it will be based on truth. I only did all my homework afterwards, so I should have done more homework on stocks and shares. So one, I didn't diversify because I thought it was such a big winner. But ultimately, I believe that airport knew they were in trouble. And so then they announced the contract to America. Boom, all the stocks and shares went through the roof again
Yeah.
because they'd seen that happen when they were going to Europe, when they're going to Africa, when they're going to these different places. The stocks always went up. So they announced that to America. They knew to sell. If you're in the know, you know to sell. And then the minute they sold their shares, announced, oh, the contract fell apart. Now that contract fell apart and it all went under in a matter of days. So anyway, that's my conspiracy theory. So I lost a shed load of money. So if it was to come to stocks and shares again, anything of that nature where you invest in something heavily, there's a bit of fear around that because I lost my pants. Yeah.
Mm.
So that it can happen to anyone. I promise you, no matter how much you know this stuff, events will just keep coming along. It can scare the hell out of you. And you think like, this shouldn't be happening to me because I'm so smart now. It's always going to happen to you. That's the way life works. The smartness is going, hang on, what's the best way to deal with this? Yeah. And again, I supply tools that people are able to use and frameworks that they can use to be able to get through all of those things.
Amazing, amazing. So let's jump into our quick fire round. So just obviously
I'll try to keep it quick.
clue is in the title. Quick. Who has influenced your property or business journey the most?
Whew. Um, I'm gonna say a gentleman called Rob Moore. Don't know if you
Oh,
know
amazing.
Rob.
Of
Yeah,
course.
disruptive entrepreneur, and that's where I came across him about 10 years ago, and he illuminated my mind to many business sides because you specifically said business,
Yeah.
and in my head I immediately went to mindset. But because of business, yeah, Rob's helped me leverage my business to a much much higher degree. Worth looking up if you've never heard of Rob Moore, Moore. Worth looking him up.
Amazing. And what's one book, if I may, and I know you've mentioned a load, but what do you think is the one book that's really had the most impact on your life?
It's definitely going to say it was The Power of the Subconscious Mind from the
Okay.
1960s. And again, bear in mind it was those three that came together, but they are from the 60s and the 70s, psychocybernetics. So those, if you read those today, they could feel a bit old fashioned. And so I'm always reluctant to tell people, "Oh, go read these books." They worked for me, but that was back in the 1980s, and so that even then they were 20 years old.
Yeah.
But now they're 50 years old and seem like a world away. So there will be newer versions of those. On my website, engagewithsuccess.com, there's a button that says resources, and all my favorite books, favorite teachers, favorite movies and documentaries are listed on there. So if they go to engagewithsuccess.com and click on resources, they'll be able to find lots of inspirational places to go.
Amazing, amazing. If you had to choose just one property strategy, what would it be?
I'll share mine. So we get bungalows and we put mature people in them. Let's call it that way. So they're mature people have found. People of a mature age have a different mindset. They're from a different
Mm.
world, really, and so that they would never, never want to cheat their landlord of his payment. They would be horrified if they did that. It's been a good strategy for us. So we like to buy bungalows. They seem to go for a premium price because when people have got a house and they can't really deal with the stairs anymore and they want to go and get themselves
Yeah.
a property, bungalows seem to get premium rates. So yeah, we've landed on our feet.
Amazing. I love it. And what is your no compromise morning routine?
Start straight away. Catch yourself thinking. As soon as you wake up, we want to get into self reverence. And so that's laying there in bed, open your eyes. Don't determine your day by the weather. Just love the weather. Great, it's a sunny day. I can get the gardening done. Great, it's a rainy day. That means I'll stay in and I'm going to work on my book or whatever it might be. So everything is to your advantage. And so notice that thing. First thing in the morning, if you wake up and you're telling yourself, oh, I've got work today, you might want to change your job. So there are clues in here all day long. So that's the very first thing that I would do. I would then give yourself an hour to do stuff for yourself. And when I say do stuff for yourself, I don't mean check email. If you go and check your email, you're doing stuff for other people. That's immediately going to draw you into their world. And they've written to you, say, oh, can you do this for me? Or can you do that? Or you've got to get this paid for, that paid for, this is behind, and you're stuck in a whole nother world. So, oh, this is meant to be quick fire, right? Rapid fire. So ultimately, yeah, do something for yourself that first morning, that first hour. And it might be, I used to do 20 minutes of these things. So 20 minutes of exercise, 20 minutes of reading, and then 20 minutes of closing my eyes and just breathing. So some people might call that meditation. Some people might call it mindfulness. I'm a big fan of breath work, and it's just to really stabilize your nervous system.
Amazing. And then the final question is what what one word would describe your mindset this year?
Ooh. Um, now I'm about giving more than ever before. Giving, giving, giving is really what I am. So there was, well, I was brought up to be a go-getter. Yeah. Or I taught myself to be a go-getter, 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 go-getter. And it's actually a lot. It's from Bob Proctor. I was lucky enough to meet Bob, and he really trained me to be a go-giver. And so that's definitely where I am. I'm very fortunate. I have a beautiful family, beautiful wife. I love our house. I love our cars. So all the materialistic things, I'm happy with it. And funnily enough, Rob always trying to get me to go bigger, go bigger, go bigger, go bigger. But I love where I live. I love what I do. And that's key. That's grace. That's a state of grace. If you love your life, it doesn't matter how big or how small it is. If you're happy, you win. That's all you want. Happiness. You don't allow other people to determine what happiness should be. Or, I'm in a terraced house, so I should be in a bigger house. It's whatever you want it to be. Some people will have a 6-bedroom house and still be thinking, I need a mansion. Some people will be earning millions a year and they're now pushing for more millions a year. Now, I'm not saying there's wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you love and that's your nirvana, then go for it. But I just don't want people they fall into this trap. I guess comparisons is what they're doing, and they're working their way up and up and up and up and up. So I'll give you a really good example. Have I got time? Have I got time to give the example?
Yes, go on.
So I was lucky enough to do a speaking gig. I got $10,000 for an hour's work. Brilliant.
Wow.
And it was like, oh, that's brilliant. And it is, it's great. But Jack Canfield, who I was lucky enough to work with, Jack
Wow.
Canfield had 800 people in the room, $600 per person. So that was $480,000, $500,000 for 2 days. So suddenly, what, 10 grand an hour? It's no big deal, right? It's no big deal because he's making way more. But then let's take it a step further. Tony Robbins, I'm sure everyone listening's heard of Tony, a very, very famous coach, probably the most famous coach on the planet. Lovely fella. He's all about giving, giving, giving as well. Very big on that. But he does his 5-day, normally 5 days, an event. It used to be in the O2, now taking it to Germany. It's probably because instead of 10,000 people, he's got 14,000 people. And it's generally €1,500 to €5,000 if you want to be a VIP. But if we just said they're €1,000 each. 14,000 people at €1,000 is 14 million in 5 days. But bear in mind, this is his sales funnel. And you
Yeah.
might be like, it's not funnel yet. He's doing an event, but he wants to get you to the next level. not just because he wants your money, but because he wants to take you to the next level. And so really what he's selling is a €15,000 training program. And so let's say out of those 14,000, only 1,000 say yes. That's another 15 million. So he does 29 million in 5 days. Do you see how it's all in perspective? So if I was chasing that, I'd be working in a very, very, very different way. I love where I am. I love what I do, and I love helping people. So much so, on Tuesdays at 7 p.m., I do free coaching. So if any of your clients or followers would like to join us for that, that's also on the website under community. They can find that there. And of course, if they want to reach out and get a free discovery call to accelerate their success, they are able to do that. And my summer retreat is coming up in a few months' time. We're still waiting for dates because there's so many weddings this year. So the hotel is like, give us a few more days. So I'm waiting to secure the dates for that.
Amazing, amazing. So I was going to say where to find you. So your website, anywhere else on socials, things like
I'm
that.
on all the socials. Yeah, I just funnily, I've been a fan of just posting because it's quick and easy, and I get my posts done in about 12 minutes.
Yeah.
But just this week, there's so much AI out there that I guess it's me being a bit of a rebel, and it's my resistance to it because I've seen there's so much AI now, and it's the voice of maybe Joe Dispenza or Tony Robbins or Bob Proctor, and they've taken they've been able to modulate the voice, and so people are going to believe it's really them,
Mm,
and that terrifies me. That's awful because people are being cheated.
yeah.
And so I've now started doing live videos and I'm posting those every day. I'm on like day 6, but that will be every day from now on.
Oh, amazing. I love that. I love that. Amazing. Well, Paul, as always, you are an absolute inspiration to me and so many others. So everyone, please, please do go and look Paul up and see what he does. I feel extremely fortunate to have met him. So thank you so much, Paul.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on the
Thank you.
podcast.
So remember, guys, what are you going to take away from today's episode? Paul has shared a lot. So really listen carefully and think, what was that one thing that, really piqued your understanding, or you thought, wow, that is absolutely me. I really want to make an effort to change that. Because as we said, 80% of your success is your mindset. So it's so, so key to work on that. And do remember, property success isn't just about what you do. As we've seen from today, it really is about what you think and the state you're in when you make decisions. And when you combine smart strategies with calm, well-focused, well-rested mind, there's literally no limit to what you can build in the long term. So, in the emphasis of helping others, if you know someone struggling in their property journey, please do share this episode because it absolutely could be the game changer that they need. And remember, the more people that we help, then actually the greater our own wealth in every sense of the word. And growing this community means growing the potential that we all have to succeed together. And as always, your mindset is your greatest property. Keep building it.